Good evening and welcome to Courts Today by Live Law. I am Urvashi Chauhan and in this video we bring you key updates from India's courts. From the Supreme Court questioning if voters can be denied the nota option in single candidate elections to Justice Sudhanshu Dholia's emotional farewell remarks. We covered major rulings on the Banke Bihari Temple Ordinance, a Telangana election dispute and a PIL seeking solutions to human-wildlife conflicts. Plus, the Himachal Pradesh High Court's verdict upholding negligence charges in the Beas River tragedy. Make sure to watch till the end and do not forget to like, share and subscribe and hit the bell icon. The Supreme Court has posed a sharp question during the hearing of a PIL challenging the practice of declaring candidates elected without conducting a poll in uncontested elections. The bench comprising Justices Suryakant, Ujjal Bhuya and N. Koteshwar Singh asked whether the invisible will of voters should be defeated if there is only one candidate but a substantial number of voters through nota, that is none of the above option, do not want that person elected. The matter concerns Section 53, subsection 2 of the Representation of People Act, which mandates that if the number of contesting candidates equals the number of available seats, the returning officer must declare those candidates duly elected without holding a poll. So this allows a candidate to win automatically when there is only one person in the fray. No voting takes place and nota is not even an option. The petitioner here, Vidhi Center for Legal Policy, challenged this in the Supreme Court via a PIL, arguing that it deprives voters of their right to express dissent even when there is only one candidate. During the arguments, Justice Kant observed that voters opting for nota often do so out of serious resentment towards the available candidate and therefore the option should carry meaningful consequences. Senior advocate Rakesh Dwivedi, appearing for the Election Commission of India, countered that if voters dislike the sole candidate, they can nominate an independent candidate. But Justice Bhuya disagreed, noting that setting up a candidate is not always practically feasible, leaving voters with the nota as their only means of protest. Dwivedi concluded by stating that the Commission has no objection if Parliament enacts a law to address the issue. Attorney General R. Venkata-Ramani submitted that since 1991, instances of uncontested elections have been rare, making this issue largely academic. Petitioners' counsel strongly disputed this, citing data to show that such situations, while uncommon, are not negligible. Advocate Prashant Bhushan, representing the Association for Democratic Reforms, which was allowed to intervene, pointed out that several states have introduced provisions in local body elections where a re-poll is held if nota receives more votes than any candidate. However, no such safeguard exists for Lok Sabha elections. The petition traces its constitutional grounding to the Supreme Court's 2013 judgment in People's Union for Civil Liberties versus Union of India, which recognized the right to cast a negative vote as part of freedom of expression under Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution. It argues that the current legal regime effectively nullifies this right in uncontested elections. The example of Surat constituency in the 2024 Lok Sabha polls, where a single candidate was declared elected without a vote, is cited as a recent instance. Historically, the petition notes 258 candidates have been declared elected unopposed in parliamentary and assembly elections combined. The Supreme Court had earlier in April last year issued notice on a separate petition seeking to declare an election null and void if nota secures the maximum number of votes. The current PIL now raises the question of whether uncontested elections should be subjected to a poll to respect the electorate's right to dissent. Justice Sudhanshu Dholia, who will retire from the Supreme Court on 9th August, delivered a heartfelt farewell speech in the court today, describing the Supreme Court as the true Hindustan, by which he meant the Supreme Court bar, which he sees as a microcosm of the entire nation. He said that what he would miss the most was the diversity of the court, people from every part of the country coming together, lawyers bringing different languages, cultures and perspectives, and cases that reflect the issues all of India. Justice Dhulia spoke fondly about the intellectual richness of his time on the bench, especially in constitutional bench hearings, which he said opened his mind to perspectives he had never considered before. Over his career, let me tell you, he served as a judge of the Uttarakhand High Court, then as Chief Justice of the Guwahati High Court from January 2021, before being elevated to the Supreme Court on 9th May 2022. Let me tell you, he is remembered for his dissent in the Karnataka hijab case, where he held that girls should not be denied education for wearing a hijab. His observation that Urdu is not alien to India, and his direction to the Election Commission to consider Aadhaar, Ration and voter cards in the electoral roll process in Bihar. His farewell was attended by Chief Justice of India B.R. Gavai and other senior judges as well as leading law officers and members of the bar who paid tribute to his contributions and legacy. In the next update, the Supreme Court has decided to suspend the functioning of the committee formed under the Uttar Pradesh Sri Banke Bihari Ji Temple Trust Ordinance 2025, which had been given the power to manage the Banke Bihari Temple in Vrindavan, Mathura. The bench of Justices Suryakant and Joymalia Bagchi said that the petitioners could approach the High Court to challenge the constitutional validity of the ordinance, and until the High Court delivers its decision, the present committee under the ordinance will remain in abeyance. To ensure smooth management of the temple in the meantime, the court announced plans to set up an interim committee headed by a former High Court judge. This body will include government officials and representatives of the Goswamis, the temple's traditional caretakers, and will oversee developmental activities in the temple area. The court also indicated that it would recall the May judgment that allowed the state government to utilize temple funds for a redevelopment. The bench has stayed proceedings in a related writ petition pending before a single judge of the Allahabad High Court and requested that the Chief Justice assign it to a division bench, noting that constitutional challenges are typically heard by larger benches. Senior advocates Shyam Devan, Kapil Sibal and Gopal Shankara Narayan appeared for the petitioners, while additional Solicitor General K.M. Nataraj represented the Uttar Pradesh government. This matter has a long history. The Banke Bihari temple has traditionally been managed by about 360 Sevayats who are descendants and followers of Swami Haridas Ji. In May, the Supreme Court had modified an Allahabad High Court order and permitted the UP government to acquire nearby land for a corridor project using temple funds, with the stipulation that the land be registered in the deity's name. The state later promulgated the 2025 ordinance creating a statutory trust, the Sri Banke Bihari Ji Mandir Nyas, to handle temple management and devotee facilities. The trust would have 11 trustees, of which up to 7 could be ex officio members. Earlier this week, the Supreme Court had sharply questioned the state's steering hurry in bringing the ordinance and criticized the clandestine manner in which the May 15th permission to use temple funds was secured. The UP government has argued that it has no intention of interfering with religious rights and that the ordinance will be placed before the Legislative Assembly for ratification. Well, the court has sought suggestions from both sides for appointment of the interim committee's chairperson. The Supreme Court has today dismissed a special leave petition filed by Adi Srinivas, who was challenging a Telangana High Court ruling in the long-running case involving former Vemulavada MLA Ramesh Chennamanani's German citizenship. The High Court had earlier declared that Chennamanani was a German citizen and therefore disqualified from contesting or holding public office. However, it did not declare Srinivas, who had consistently come second in the constituency's elections, as the duly elected MLA. Srinivas argued that this omission denied him rightful representation and allowed Chennamanani to continue drawing legislative benefits such as a pension, despite the court finding that he had committed fraud by concealing his foreign citizenship. Chennamanani, who served 4 consecutive terms as Vemulavada MLA, was accused of suppressing the fact that he was a German national. In December last year, let me tell you, the High Court had imposed a 30 lakh cost on him for hiding this information. The controversy began years earlier when the central government cancelled his Indian citizenship in 2019, a move that he challenged in court. Even in 2013, the High Court had held that he was not an Indian citizen, but repealed litigation and procedural delays allowed him to keep contesting and holding office in the years 2009, 2010, 2014 and 2018. Today, a bench of Justices M.M. Sundaresh and N.K. Singh of the Supreme Court heard senior advocate Gaurav Agarwal for Srinivas, who pressed that the High Court had acknowledged fraud but failed to grant consequential relief. The bench, however, refused to interfere, noting that the assembly term for the election in question had already expired, and in Justice Sundaresh's words, the court could not resurrect the matter. Srinivas, who eventually won the Vemulavada seat in 2023, maintains that Chennamanani's election victories were unlawful from the start and that the Election Commission and Legislative Assembly's records should reflect his disqualification for all those terms. Well, despite all these claims, the Supreme Court has now closed the chapter without altering the High Court's decision. Moving ahead, a PIL has been filed in the Kerala High Court by wildlife activist Angels Nair, urging the court to find peaceful solution to the growing human-wildlife conflict in the state. The petition seeks enforcement of a March 2022 Controller and Auditor General report on measures to prevent and manage such conflicts, which was tabled in the Kerala Assembly in July last year. At the heart of the case is a controversial resolution passed by the Chakittapara Panchayat in Kozhikode, calling for the killing of all wild animals entering its boundaries. Nair argues that this has fueled unnecessary hostility towards wildlife, has been used by political leaders to gain electoral mileage, and is not backed by any real threats, noting that the area has seen no major incidents of human livestock or crop loss in the past 2 years. The petition also accuses the Forest Department's rapid response team of brutal and unlawful attacks on wild elephants using explosives, guns, and pellets, which is in violation of the Wildlife Protection Act. It highlights the case of a baby elephant captured and kept at the Muthanga elephant camp, seeking its release, and a ban on illegal elephant repelling practices. Further, Nair raises issues such as illegal diversion of forest land for religious and institutional use, the need to release tigers and leopards in captivity in accordance with the law, and the importance of appointing an amicus curiae to investigate large-scale illegal forest land conversions. She has also asked the court to direct the state to ban speeches, media content, and political statements that incite cruelty against wild animals, in line with the constitutional duty under Article 51A Clause G to protect the environment. The plea even calls for the Press Council of India to ensure that media refrains from portraying wildlife in derogatory terms, and for the Election Commission to prevent political parties from making anti-wildlife remarks during election campaigns. Let me tell you, Nair, who serves as General Secretary of Animal Legal Force Integration, is arguing the matter herself as party in person. And lastly, the Himachal Pradesh High Court has refused to grant relief to faculty members of Hyderabad's VNR Vignaya Jyoti Institute of Engineering and Technology, who had challenged their prosecution in connection with the 2014 Beas River tragedy, in which 24 students and a tour manager lost their lives. The background to this case dates back to June 2014, when 48 students, accompanied by 2 faculty members, a lady staffer with her child, tour operators, drivers, cooks, cleaners, and booking managers, were traveling from Shimla to Kullu Manali in 2 private buses. En route, the students requested a stop to take photographs near the Beas River. The buses were parked roadside and the group proceeded down to the river bank with a tour manager. Without warning, water was suddenly released upstream, causing a surge in the river's flow. Panic ensued as the group tried to scramble to safety. While some managed to reach the shore, 24 students, 6 girls and 18 boys, along with the tour manager, were swept away by the powerful current. In their petition, the faculty members argued that the incident was the result of an unexpected and man-made water release by the dam and electricity board authorities, and that there was no apparent danger at the river site when the students approached it. But dismissing the criminal revision petition filed by the faculty, Justice Virender Singh upheld the trial court's order that they be tried under Section 304A of IPC, which deals with causing death by negligence, read with Section 34, which relates to acts done with common intention. The court found that the faculty members were fully aware of the dangers posed by the river, yet failed to stop the students from entering the riverbed. The bench observed that one of the faculty members had even brought her own child to the trip, but tellingly did not allow her own child to venture into the riverbed. This, the court said, showed clear awareness of the risk. It further noted that the faculty had visited the same location during a previous tour and were therefore familiar with the topography and hazards of the area. By contrast, the students, all from Hyderabad, had no knowledge of the dangerous nature of the perennial river like the Beas and were on what was meant to be an educational tour. According to the court, when the danger became apparent, the faculty members fled to safety without ensuring the students were brought back with them. The judge remarked that the alleged rash and negligent acts of the accused were the immediate cause of the tragedy, a matter that would be tested during the course of the trial. With this ruling, the trial against the faculty members will now continue in the lower court, keeping alive one of the most tragic incidents. This is Urvashi Chauhan signing off from Courts Today.